Menstruation is a natural biologic process experienced by nearly all women of reproductive age. An average woman will have about 450 menstrual cycles in her lifetime. That is, she sees her period cumulatively for 38 years of her life. So if half of the world population are women, and every woman everywhere menstruates, why then are we not talking about periods? Why are we trivializing issues around periods? Why are we not speaking about it? Why do women lack sanitary products? Why do women lack sanitary infrastructures? Why do women lack information? Why are women isolated? The question I ask our society is why? Adolescent girls are the most vulnerable to the negative outcomes related to periods. Aside from the effect on their overall self-esteem and confidence, like you saw in the video clip, they suffer a lot of health implications when they use unhygienic substances like rags, newspapers, just anything they can lay their hands on to manage their period month after month. It makes them vulnerable to pelvic inflammatory diseases and, in worst case scenarios, infertility. I remember several years back, I was on call in a health facility here in Nigeria when this 14-year-old girl was rushed into the emergency room with severe pelvic pain. As the doctor on call, I examined her, and I discovered that she was managing her periods with cotton balls, feathers, for months because her auntie could not provide pads for her. And this had caused her to have the pelvic infection. After treating her, I knew we had a public health crisis in our hands. And that became the aha moment for me. That particular day, I remembered what I faced as a young girl. Girls miss school because they lack sanitary supplies. They are afraid the menstrual blood will seep onto their uniforms. Those who attend cannot concentrate or participate fully in class activities or even in sports activities. A survey carried out by UNICEF in 5 African countries revealed that 49% of girls miss 4 days of school each month while menstruating. During our Red Diamond program in Benue State, I visited a school and I observed that the toilets were locked. When I asked the principal, why are the toilets locked? And he said, oh, the girls, they mess it up, so we had to lock it. And I asked him, how do they take care of themselves during their period? So I stepped out of his office, I saw a female student, and I asked her, your toilets are permanently locked, so when you're on your period, what do you do? And she looked at me and said, I don't bother to come to school, but I just wait at home. Most of the girls also lack knowledge of sexual and reproductive health issues. They are not taught in schools or even at home. Girls are uncomfortable discussing it. Teachers and parents feel shy and uncomfortable to discuss the issues. Religious bodies feel it's immoral, so everyone just wallows in ignorance. Did you know that an average woman menstruates about 3,000 times and uses about 17,000 disposables in her lifetime? Imagine that these pads are not biodegradable. That is, they are disposable pads. Imagine here in our country, Nigeria, where we have poor refuse disposal system. We usually pile our trash and burn them, thus depleting the ozone layer and harming our ecosystem. Imagine that we dispose them in landfills, and very soon we'll no longer have arable farmlands to cultivate our crops. Have you thought of the sea and the ocean? Our fishes now harbor plastics. How do we save our environment from this decay? Imagine that we just throw them carelessly on the roadsides, walkways, and it gets swept off by the rain into the drains, resulting in blocked drains and sewages. Now, stop imagining. That's the reality. To address this problem, Hafai has come up with an innovative solution that mitigates the impact of disposable options. It replaces about 24 boxes of disposable pads because it can last for up to 2 years. What are the properties of our reusable menstrual kits? Of course, they are reusable, eco-friendly, culturally acceptable, made from local fabrics, easy to use and convenient, adjust to personal flow, saves costs as it can last for up to 2 years if properly used, erases fear of menstrual fluid being used for diabolic purposes, leak-proof, and ensures lasting confidence. Hafai's goal is to ensure that girls and women can confidently and comfortably manage their periods. We address this gap by giving puberty education, dispelling myths and taboos, providing hygienic substances, the sanitary pads, and empowering women with skills and machines to make the pads. So how do we work? We establish Red Diamond clubs in schools, where we give boys and girls puberty education, dispel the harmful myths, train them on sexual and reproductive health and rights, gender-based violence, and distribute menstrual hygiene readers and reusable sanitary pads. The Health Club is also a safe space for girls to ask questions freely about the sexual and reproductive health issues and rights. A girl once told a story about how a boy told her that sleeping with him would make her feel better with her menstrual cramps. So the issue around periods is shrouded with a lot of stigma, taboos, and misconceptions. Girls lack knowledge about their bodies and are totally misinformed. Boys are also not left out in our program, as they are also taught issues around sexual and reproductive health during the club activities. Principals and teachers are also part of the intervention, as we organize periodic workshops and conferences to reinforce important messages about periods and human rights. The impact of our work. When we gave out the reusable kits, we conducted a survey after 1 year. 2,000 girls received the reusable kits, but about 95.3%, only 95.3% responded. 4.7% didn't participate because some of them had changed school, a few had dropped out, and for some other factors. The proportion of girls that missed school dropped, that's absence rate, from 28.8% to 6.5% after our intervention. Percentage of girls that had access to hygienic materials went from 12.2% to 72.3%. The percentage of girls that had knowledge about puberty, periods, and sexual and reproductive issues also increased after our intervention, from 38.5% to 96.8%. Hafai reusable pad was used by 83% of the respondents. Out of this number, 88.8% felt comfortable and well protected while using it. Out of the 17% that didn't use the reusable pads, 45.2% said they gave it to their sisters. Another 43.7% said their mothers took it, while 7.4% chose not to use it for different reasons. At the community level, because men and boys are vital to changing societal norms, we decided to take our advocacy to rural communities. To address the stigma and taboo, we target the village chiefs and traditional leaders. You can see some of them, they are here present, dispelling the myths and taboos that have held girls back for many years. For example, in some communities, women are not allowed to cook for their husbands, go to religious centers, or even attend social gatherings, just for a normal biologic function. Some cultures believe that a girl should be married off after her first period, without knowing that child marriage can lead to vesico-vaginal fistula, gender-based violence, increased incidence of HIV/AIDS, and other health-related complications. You can see on the slide there, that's a 12-year-old girl with her twins. I once visited a rural community where a woman is made to sit over a hole in a secluded place of the house. All these issues can be undignifying and disempowering for women and girls. The world needs to realize that shaming the cycle of a woman can only lead to a cycle of shame. Another focus of our work is on empowerment of women and girls. Hafai is empowering women with knowledge, skills, and machines to make pads and earn an income from its sales. Because empowerment of women and girls is the only remedy to our prevailing male chauvinist culture, according to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The women are able to start up an enterprise and support their families and also share the knowledge with other women. The woman in the picture, Priscilla, has been able to train 8 women in a space of 6 months after our intervention. And one of her mentees has in turn trained 2 women in 4 months. That's Priscilla in the picture. Let's listen to Priscilla's story. In all, through our Red Diamond project, Hafai has reached out to 10,300 girls with reusable pads and menstrual hygiene readers. Hafai has also empowered 281 women with skills, starter packs, and sewing machines. The Red Diamond project also involves intervention in the IDP camps. About 81% of those in the IDP camps are women and children. And people just go and give food and clothing, and nobody asks how do these women take care of themselves month after month. Because menstruation does not stop even in the camp and in refugee settings. So, the intervention in the IDP camps includes giving out 2,000 reusable kits to girls and empowering 50 women with sewing machines and enterprise starter packs so they can start a business for themselves, learn a skill, so even after the Boko Haram insurgency, they would not be stranded. Menstrual hygiene is a cross-cutting issue, so it requires a multi-sectoral approach. Of the 17 SDGs, it impacts directly on 10 SDGs. SDG 1, no poverty. Of course, as you can see with the enterprise program, women can earn an income and livelihood for themselves. SDG 3, good health and well-being. With a hygienic sanitary product, you are no longer predisposed to infections. Quality education, SDG 4, because girls can now remain in school and participate effectively in the class. Gender equality, SDG 5. Women can now participate fully in the economic growth of their families. Clean water and sanitation. Our environment will no longer be littered with disposable pads. Decent work and economic growth. Our women can now go to work with dignity and self-confidence, and they can earn an income as well. Reduce inequalities. So of course, there will be reduced inequalities between men and women. The climate action, SDG 13. Goal 14, life below water. Our fishes and aquatic animals would not be safe because very few plastics will be going into our aquatic life. Life on land. Of course, you saw from the previous slides, we will now have arable farmlands for our cultivation.
A lot of times we hear gender-based violence, we automatically go to sexual violence. But gender-based violence is not just sexual violence. It can be sexual, it can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be psychological. There are so many types of gender-based violence, and it's a global phenomenon which we are just beginning to talk about in Nigeria now, but it has always been in existence. In conflict situations, like we all know, Nigeria has been in a conflict situation, particularly in the northeast, for a very long time, 10 years now. And in conflict situations, gender-based violence is completely worse than what we know it to be. When we talk about gender-based violence, we're not just talking about also, the violence itself, but also access to facilities and institutions. So when you think about, conflict situations whereby we have a lot of humanitarian crisis now, people living in IDP communities, people living in IDP camps, the shelter is not adequate. There's no access to healthcare. There's no access to proper sanitation, proper shelter. So it encourages a lot of gender-based violence in these settings. So imagine being a girl or a woman living in a condition whereby the only shelter you have is made of cloth. Everything that you do, you are very sensitive to that, and then you are exposed to a lot of harm from all quarters. You are more exposed to violence. You are more exposed to being uncomfortable. Access to even sanitary facilities is very, very limited. So in humanitarian setting, the gender-based violence is unimaginable. And we have millions of people right now in Nigeria living in this condition. we spoke to a lot of people living in IDP communities, and a lot of them say that one of their biggest problems, even to think about going to the toilet. Imagine going to the toilet and it's a big problem. You are thinking about what could happen to you just to ease yourself. It's that bad. So in a humanitarian setting, it becomes worse than what we are even imagining at this point. There is no privacy. Privacy is very, very limited, and then because there's very little security, women and girls are very prone to attack, abuses, and psychological trauma. So one thing I forgot to mention is the dangers of gender-based violence. Apart from the physical dangers, apart from the emotional and traumatic danger to the individual itself who is going through this, also as a society has a huge impact on us as a society, because children who have been exposed to violence are more likely to perpetrate violence themselves. Also, people who are traumatized cannot contribute to society as effectively as they could have. So it limits our economic development, it limits so many things. So we don't just look at gender-based violence in terms of the person being affected, but also as a whole and how it affects the society.
The main conclusion of all this research is that one of the best investments for your naira or your dollar or your euro or your Australian dollar for that matter in development, one of your very best investments in development is to invest in the education of girls. Countries lose out enormous amounts of money because they don't pay enough attention to getting girls into school. The first reason, the first reason is a very obvious one. When a girl goes to school until the age of 18, she is much better prepared to take up her role in society. Girls with good education generally earn twice as much for society than girls that haven't been completing their education. So that's one major effect. Another effect is that girls that go to school until the age of 18 plan their families much more wisely. So child pregnancies, premature pregnancies, with all the problems that it entails, the medical problems that the doctor already told about, the physical problems that a child of way under 15 years might have in giving childbirth, the medical costs that will incur, the problems with the children that are born from a mother at such a young age. That's one cost of it, but the other cost is also that we have a family that is not able really to take care of that child. How can a child take care of a child? So others have to take care of the child that is born from a girl of a very young age. So there's a burden to society. Whereas a woman that is ready and has planned her family will be able to take care of that child, give a good education to that child, and in her turn also give something back to society, a well-educated child. So it is a very important element in breaking the cycle of poverty. I'm not going to give a lecture. You'll find everything on World Bank website and other websites on this matter. The point is that the reason why the government of the Netherlands is so proud and so convinced to support the types of activities that we're supporting today here is that it's one of our best investments in development. It's one of our best investments in development of development in the life of the girls themselves, the human rights issue, the moral issue, but also for the economy of the country. So with these few words, I wanted to encourage everybody here in the room to continue on this path for the welfare of our children, for the welfare of our girls, but also for the welfare of our countries. I thank you very much.
Inside is a bar of soap, a pint, and extra Ziploc bag with a menstrual pad, which has pictorial illustration on how to use and maintain kids. How to use kids. When a girl is on her period, she then pick one shoe and unclip it at the back. Then default flannels into 3 for maximum absorption. If she has right floor, she uses 1 flannel. If she has head floor, she then uses 2 or more for their flannels and tuck in the flannel inside the two pockets of the shield. Tuck it inside like this. Then pick the pant and turn it inside out. Place the shield over the pant and clip it at the back. Now her pant is ready to be worn.
This is a new clean one. And if the shield is also soiled, she replaces it with the second one. Remember, there are 2 shield and 6 flannel, so the girl always has extras to use. She then put the soiled shield and flannel pants in an extra Ziploc bag like this. Like this, and sell it to create an odor-proof environment. As soon as she gets home after school, she then removes the soiled shield, flannel, and pants and washes them with soap and water. Rinse properly. Make sure there is no element of soap or foam on the clothes. She then dry them under the sun, not inside the room or under the table, but under the sun, because the sun has antimicrobial properties which help kill germs on the clothes. In case there is no sun, she can press or dry the flannel with pressing stone or iron, but the shield cannot be pressed because the shield has polyethylene nylon-like material sewed inside the shield for prevention of menstrual fluid from staining a girl's pants.